New video shows nearly 20 tons of relief supplies headed to the British Virgin Islands, an area that is seriously struggling to get food, water, first aid, and, most notably, electricity. Residents there say they're starting over from the ground up. My co-host on Velshi and Rule, Stephanie Rule, caught up with one of those residents just moments ago.
There's no electricity, there's no water. In my estimation, about 95% of our electricity is gone. Only in town where it's underground, but all the overhead lines that connect the villages, it's gone.
Wow. All right. Stephanie's been granted access by mobile communications provider Digicel to tour damage around the British Virgin Islands with their specialists and engineers. Stephanie, we've been talking about it until you got there. How does what you're seeing on the ground square with what we thought had happened, the amount of damage in a place like Tortola?
Allie, it's so much worse. Devastating is not the answer. From the time when we arrived, first, the airport was completely empty because it had been closed except for a few rescue planes that were coming to really bring aid. And then within minutes of arriving, the U.S. Embassy had put word out that they were bringing in a relief plane so people could evacuate. And suddenly, the airport was packed with people, and we saw military officials looking for American citizens, and the roads were crowded with people trying to get to the airport to get out. Now, on those roads, every car I saw, the windows were gone, the windshield was gone. And then we made our way in, and Roadtown, that's the main city in Tortola, it's decimated. You know, this is hurricane season, so just 2 weeks ago, the mountains were all green. It's completely burnt out. It looks like there was a massive fire, but it's across the entire island. Everything is twigs. There's not a leaf to find. And then you look behind me. This is the moorings. This is a marina that's so common to anyone who's ever visited the British Virgin Islands, and it almost looks like a boat graveyard. You see boats sunk. You see catamarans, one on top of another. I was with a local boat builder, and I said, oh, I noticed there's not many boats in the water. Had people pulled them out? And they said, no, ma'am. They have either sunk or they have blown so far onto dry land or out to sea, we'll never see them again. But something I want to point out. Every person who I sat down and talked to, you know, they were working, they were cooking, they were cleaning up, and I assumed that their houses were okay. So I said, wow, you must feel really lucky that you're okay. And every person I spoke to said, ma'am, I've lost everything. My house, my clothes, my car, but I have the only thing that counts. Every person I spoke to, they said, I have my life. Something that's notable, though, it's communities that are coming together. Digicel, as you mentioned earlier, the telecommunications company, they put together an NGO here. They turned their offices into a shelter. They're distributing food. You don't see that much military. And when I speak to people around, they said the other thing they're missing, and part of it is because there isn't much cell communication, they said information. They haven't heard from their local officials. But this is going to be a lot more than just bringing aid here, bringing tarps. What you said earlier, they're going to have to start from zero. It's beyond. I saw a few schools unrecognizable. When I spoke to some parents, they said they didn't think schools would reopen for 1 to 2 years. Another point to make, you know, it had been reported that the Virgin Islands, 60% of the GDP from this region comes from tourism. From the people I spoke to, they laughed at that number, and they said it's more like 90%. And based on looking around, I cannot imagine how you are going to see the hospitality and tourism industry come back anytime soon. Every roof I can see is gone.
Wow.
You can see metal roofs folded up. They look like metal tissues across every road there is. I mean, it's devastating. When people said it looks like a war zone, post-apocalyptic, Ali Velshi, they weren't kidding.
Stephanie, what do they need most, and do they feel like they're getting it in terms of the actual supplies, materials, and expertise and help?
They don't. At this point, the people I've spoken to, honestly, from the outside world, they feel forgotten. People I spoke to said, don't forget us. You know, these Virgin Islands, whether it's British Virgin Islands, I'll be in the U.S. Virgin Islands tomorrow, they feel like their communities, their neighbors are coming together, but they don't feel like they've received a lot of aid yet. Part of it is it's really hard to get here. You know, for us, we're going from British Virgin Islands to the U.S. Virgin Islands. We've lost 5 different boats today who were supposed to bring us over because all the boats are gone or there's no fuel to be had. So this isn't like the continental United States where people can drive south from Virginia and Louisiana. we're on these islands that are very difficult to get to. There's portions of the BVIs as well as U.S. Virgin Islands where they haven't even gotten to some communities yet, because as many islands as there are, some are quite remote and there's not many people on them, but every life counts and we've got to get to them. So it's not just about relief in the immediate term, which is how we're really thinking in the continental U.S., it's long term. You do not have, and you and I have talked about this, steel, you don't have concrete in places like this. Digicel has already ordered 200 poles to come to rebuild those cell towers, and it's going to take 3 months before they get here. I can tell you, we came over with engineers who are ready to be camped out, sleeping on floors, to work to get these cell towers working again. So people are trying. It is a massive, massive undertaking. I cannot express how tough it is and how much work they're going to have to do ahead.
Well, my buddy, I'm glad that you are there showing us these pictures, that you went through that effort to get there so that we can actually see these roofs crumpled up like tissue on the street, and the work and the money and the effort that's going to have to go into rebuilding.
I want you to see, before we go, Ali, really take a close look. For anyone who's been lucky enough to visit the Virgin Islands, I want you to see these waters, because it's unrecognizable, boat after boat. Look at the trees. I mean, truly, this looks like it's burnt out. Just a week ago, they were bright and tall with leaves everywhere. It's unrecognizable.
It's unbelievable. All right, Stephanie, we'll keep in close touch with you, and you'll be back with us tomorrow from the U.S. Virgin Islands. Stephanie Ruhle in the British Virgin Islands today. All right, coming up.